You're alive.
Hello, everybody from around the world. Thank you guys for joining me. You're the best. I have my client Eric in with me today, and he is originally from sunny California, so that's really exciting. I did cut his hair about 3 weeks ago, as I always do. Today, I'm going to be doing a descending fade where I'm going to work all the way up to the top with my longest length first, and then working down. The blade lengths are going to be a 1.5, a 1, a 0A, and then a triple aught. I will have those in the comments below, so you can click on that if you're interested in purchasing them. And then at the very end, I'm going to show you styling, because his haircut really is about the style. The style is kind of that Pompadour style, and I'll talk to that a little bit. I just want to let you know at the very end, I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite quotes, which if it's meant to be, it's up to me. I kind of live by this quote. I want to share what that means to me, and hopefully you'll get some inspiration out of it. But back to Eric, like I said, we do have this kind of pompadour style, and it's that one where it's really short sides, it's the longer top. And I'll be honest, this is not a haircut. It's been around for a little bit. It's been kind of trendy for a little bit. And I won't say that it's something I highly recommend to a lot of people. But the reason I don't recommend it to a lot of people is because I feel like what happens is somebody like David Beckham or somebody really good looking like a Brad Pitt or something wears it. It's executed really well. It's highly stylized. It's in some, manly movie or something, and then everybody wants it. But what happens is it gets watered down. Clients don't style it as well. So there has this piece flopping here in the front. It starts looking like a toupee because the sides are cut really short with no shape to it. And then this top piece just kind of hangs over, and then it flops down, and it just kind of becomes this mess. And then it becomes like people who just don't do their hair and stuff. So, but with that said, even though it's not my favorite haircut and it's kind of, I still think that he wears it really well. His hair goes back really nicely. It fades really nicely. It's cohesive, and most importantly, he actually does his hair every day. He wears the right products. He blow dries his hair, and he makes me look really good throughout the haircut. Plus, on top of it, he maintains it by getting it cut every 3 weeks. So I think that's really imperative that if you're going to do this for somebody, you have to educate them on the maintenance that it's going to take in between. So, like I said, I really like this haircut on him. I'm going to focus mostly on the styling at the end because I think that's the part that's lost. I'll point out a couple other things that I think are really important about this haircut is, again, I think where the execution is really poor is in almost all haircuts is the transition area. So the transition area is, you can see how I'm going to build some weight in through this back area. I see all too often that this line is taken all the way up to here, and then the haircut is taken up to here, and then this hair in the back is left really long. So the thing that, even though it's a huge disconnection through the front, there's got to be connections somewhere, and that somewhere should usually be in the back. Now, could you disconnect it completely? Sure. But then you're not really into a pompadour. You're just kind of into an undercut. And then there's really no, usually their wife can do it at home, because it's like you just tie up the top and you buzz up the sides. That's kind of a different haircut than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it's faded really nicely into a longer top, if that makes sense. So I'll show you how I do it. One thing I also want to point out is, even though this is a static shape, I want you to think about movement of the haircut, even if that's just visual. So starting up here and moving that down and through here, and then I'm going to go from a little bit less weight into more weight. And there's almost this visual movement that happens that I think is really beautiful. And that plays to more the aesthetic part of it and more the design part of it. So as you keep getting better and better at hair, your eye keeps getting better and better. The example that I always use is that is blondes. Like, sometimes you see absolute beautiful blondes that look really natural, even though it's clear that it's not natural. And there's a little bit of dimension in there, and there's tone in there that's beautiful. And then sometimes you see blondes and it just looks a hot mess, right? And so they're both blonde. They both might be the same level, but one is aesthetically beautiful and one isn't. It's not executed well. And so the same thing goes for men's hair cutting. Even though you do a fade and you might follow certain things, some haircuts are just a little more beautiful. So keep paying attention and asking yourself why. Why is it more beautiful? How can I do it a little bit better? So I'm gonna start again, like I said, with a 1.5 blade. You guys have seen me do this before. Okay, I wear my hair straight with lip gloss today. And it's just not the best combo. But I'm gonna kind of push through this. I don't want to say quickly, but efficiently. We'll say that. And just because you've seen this on my other videos time and time again. So I'm gonna start with my longest length in through the top. And again, he's very blonde with very straight hair. And actually, what's interesting is it's actually like dark hair with dark skin. You can take this hair pretty short, and the reason is because there's not a heavy contrast. So, you know, when you have light hair on light skin, there's not as much of a contrast as dark hair on light skin. And that's also why when you're working with, a lot of times when you're working with highly textured hair and you have like black hair with a black or a darker skin, there's not a heavy contrast there. So the ability to take it shorter is, it's just, I don't know, it's just less contrast. So that's why I'm not afraid to take um, him really, really short, and it still looks really good and blended, of course. So again, this is my 1.5. So this is where I'm kind of dipping down back here, and I want to create a little bit of um, weight in through this area, because again, I want this really top hair up here blended back there. So if I cut that area too short, it's gonna look funky. And funky can be good, but not on this. Another thing I want to point out with Eric specifically, and I've seen it time and time and time and time again, is when he first came to me, he moved to my city and he had a previous haircut. And when he first moved to me, it was kind of a mess in this area. So this area was really, the line wasn't straight. And I see it a lot where people don't keep this line really straight. And what happens is it keeps moving up and all of a sudden they're dang near to the center. So just be really conscious of keeping that line really, really straight, because not only does it matter for this haircut, but it matters for the haircuts moving forward too. So now I'm moving to my number 1 blade. And as I move up, I am going to kind of address this little issue up there. I'm going to do clip over comb with it. I'm going to probably go through one first and then go through that. So sometimes I do it simultaneously. It depends. But this is my 1. So if you notice, I mean, you'll see on a lot of videos or Instagram or something, people putting really hard lines in. I'm not a huge fan of it. I like working with kind of the naturalness of it and working with the blending factor a little bit better. I think there's kind of a art to softening those lines, and you know, not kind of scrubbing. I find a lot of people put hard lines in, and then it takes them a long time to get those lines back out. You know, it's kind of like if I was to cut long hair and they want a soft bottom and I put a hard line in and then I work the whole haircut to get it out. It's the same kind of thing. So that's just my perception on it. You know, do as you choose. I'm just telling you why I do this. And then I'm going to go back through and just kind of create a softness in through here. And then especially important back in through here, I want to kind of follow that head shape. Create the softness back in through here. I'm going to I'm going to point cut a lot of this too. I do point cut his hair. I'm not a huge fan of point cutting. You won't see me do it a lot, but in this scenario, it just lays so much better. You probably can't see what I'm doing, but and I think hopefully you can see this on camera, but right here, I do kind of take this area up a little bit in through that area. When he first came to me, it was almost up here. and we grew it out, and I gave him an option. I said, okay, we can keep doing this, or we can keep growing that line out. And then there was these little hairs that were sticking out for a while, and it drove him crazy and me crazy. And it was a tough couple months, but we got there. But I told him the plan. I told him the game plan. I told him what the pain it was going to be in. But like I said, he was really good at styling his hair. So we gave him the right product, and he blow dried it correctly. So in the end, we won. So now I'm going down to a 0A. I'm just kind of burning through this because I've talked on my other videos, I've talked a little bit more into depth about this. So just kind of recognize that when I get into this length, I'm taking away the shadows. So right in through there. And if you go too high, then what happens is you just end up creating more shadows. Again, on his hair, it's really easy. It's kind of easy to blend. I mean, he's got fun hair to fade. But I can see the shadow right in here, so I'm really going to get rid of that. The bumpier the head, the more shadows. Sometimes shorter doesn't always look better. And again, I want to just make sure that you don't get, this is the haircut that you do all the time, and then you do it on people whether it looks good or not. Because you're comfortable with that haircut and you're not comfortable with kind of what they should be wearing. And sometimes I often ask myself, there's two questions if somebody does something. They either don't know how, or they just avoid it. I think those are the two that it really comes down to. What that means is let's say somebody comes in, maybe they do a wrong haircut on somebody. Do they not see that it's the wrong haircut, or they see it, but they don't know how to achieve it? I'm pretty convinced that it comes down to one of those two questions. And I think about that often when I'm training people too. Like, okay, are they just avoiding this because they don't want to do it? Or do they not see it? And I have to teach differently to whatever I think the answer is. And sometimes I'll ask them certain questions to try and get my mind to wrap around what the right answer is. But do you guys have any questions? I feel like I'm just talking. It is a strong suit of mine, but... And this is just an edger. Now this is actually equal to a 5/0. But the difference is because of the T, the little edge on it, it just allows me to get into tighter areas better. Often too, when you take hair really, really short like this, I'll shave their ears whether they have hair or not. Partly because even the peach fuzz shows up a lot stronger in this scenario. So if they're out in the sunlight, or you're sitting on a plane next to them and the sun's coming in. You guys are missing it over here. Just kidding. All right. So that's my descending fade from 1.5, a little bit clipper over comb up here just to soften that. And you can see that there's some movement starting to happen. Now, if you don't, some people don't necessarily love that kind of really crispy line. If you do go over it with a, your shear over comb like this, it will help soften some of that. So if you ever get those lengths in there, you can always kind of soften that. I like the kind of hard line, but designer's choice. I feel like I have hair everywhere, probably because I do. Okay, so now even though I wet his hair and I shampooed it, and I made it clean, I did dry the bottom half. And you didn't see me dry it because I had it prepared first. But I am going to But yeah, so I dried the bottom half and then I cut it. Sometimes when it's wet, I think it looks really, really good. And then when it dries, it's like, ooh, that didn't match up to what I thought. So I'm going to, but this is still wet. And I'm actually going to dry this with a little bit of product in it first, and then I'm going to cut it. I'm going to use, and this is what I'm teaching you to teach your client, right? So you guys probably already know this, but what often I find is that even though you know it, you think everybody else knows it because it's obvious to you. The example I often use is the auto car mechanic. I hate cars, I hate mechanics, I hate the whole process. I don't know anything about cars and I don't want to know anything about cars. And so if they come in and they just kind of assume that I already know something about the car, it gets really uncomfortable because I'm like, I don't know, I feel like an idiot. So when I talk to them and say, okay, you have fine hair. So I tell them about their hair. Often people don't really even know because they've only have the hair that they have. Sorry. They only have the hair that they have. And they don't know any other hair. So I explain to them their hair. So you have really fine hair. Because of that, it tends to flop really easily. So I have to use a product and a gritty something in there to put it in so that it adds to the texture. Hair is like fabric. There's no right or wrong to it. You just have to learn to manipulate it a little bit differently. Like silk material can't have high heat and wool couldn't have low heat. Because it won't do enough, right? And so hair is the same way. There's no right or wrong, but you have to treat it a little bit differently. And so how you treat really fine hair, and it has nothing to do with gender, has nothing to do with ethnicity, it has nothing to do with the color of the hair. This is talking about the actual texture. I've seen Indian people with really fine hair with low density. I've seen Indian people with really highly textured hair. So there is no right or wrong. I've seen really highly textured hair or textured hair, really coily hair, really curly hair. That's really fine. So just make sure that you know the difference and you're explaining each of those characteristics to the person with that hair. So in this texture, it's pretty straight. It's fine with medium density. And I explained that to him, you have fine hair. It naturally wants to fall on its own. I'm going to use a product. It's a sea salt product that when I spray it into your hair, it works best when you blow dry it into your hair. So I'm going to blow dry it into his hair and I'm going to show him how to blow dry it. A lot of people, when they blow dry hair, they just kind of go like this. But I'm going to be very specific and blow dry that hair and show him that blow drying the hair at the root is more important than just getting it dry. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put that product that I talked about in. I only have one extension cord over here, so I have to switch it every time. So this is a sea salt spray. It's going to add grit. It's going to add texture. I'm going to spray it in mostly at his roots. Because if I just go like this, it's just going to kind of sometimes sit on top of the hair. But where I want the volume from is the root. That's where all volume comes from. So again, if you took my hair, for example, most hair, it goes really flat here and then big here. But I want to change that around. I want the volume out of here, and then I want to help smooth out the bottom here. Sorry, I keep hitting my microphone. And so just make sure that you're kind of saying that to him too, so that we want all the volume to come in at the root. Now, when you blow dry hair, it expands hair, right? So if someone has really expansive hair already and you're trying to get it down, blow drying is not going to help. But for his hair, we want it to kind of go up. So I'm going to blow dry it. The longer you blow dry it, the more volume you'll get out of it. If somebody has really poofy hair, but you want it to still go back, often I suggest to just blow dry that root back to where you want it, and you want the volume in through here. But then sometimes you don't want the volume in through here. Then I would air dry this area, kind of like get it down as much as I could, get this as much as I could. So you want to manipulate it to each area. Again, a lot of people think that you want volume, you just kind of blow dry it, right? Or you don't want volume, you don't touch it at all. Sometimes you don't want volume here and you want volume here, then you blow dry here and you don't touch it back here. So you really have to get kind of artistic and creative with it and realize that each head of hair is different. And anything that's bespoke or tailored, like a tailored suit, is always going to be the most pristine and the most premium because it's tailored to just you. And the same thing goes for the hair too. If you want to get into those high dollar amounts and charge more money for haircuts, you've got to learn to really tailor to each person, and that's where you're going to get more and more expertise from, because people are going to come to you because nobody else can do it. If you keep doing the same haircut, and if you can do that haircut, people can probably already do the haircut. When you teach people about their hair and you show them about their hair and you show them where to apply the root and where to apply the product and how much product to use, and sometimes, if same thing with the blow dryer, if I only want volume in through this front or this, maybe just for example, they're thinning up here, but then they have the majority of their density is in through here. Same thing, I would only apply the product in through this area, but not in through here, because I maybe wouldn't want the volume through there. So really think about it like you're tailoring a suit. Or I'm trying to think what else is really customary. I can't think of anything, but but you really want to customize each thing for them. And again, if you do this for clients, they're not going to go anywhere else, right? Like whether they grow their hair out or not. So, ugh.
We got a question about.
Oh, good.
So Jeanette from Holland is wondering what brand.
Oh, Holland.
Is.
It's an Andis BGRC. So it will be in my notes below. Because you're from Holland, I don't think you can order it from American Amazon, but it will still give you exactly what it is, so you can kind of do research that way. But it's an Andis BGRC. It's a motor-driven clipper. I'm going to do a segment on it, on all clippers, explain the difference between a motorized clipper and a motorized clipper and just a magnetic clipper. But yeah, that's the one I use. I've used it for years. I've used a lot of other ones, and it's my favorite one. So, okay. Any other questions?
So far. Oh, wait. How much do you charge? Sandra is wondering, how much do you charge to train stylists to do the good man haircut?
Well, I own a salon. I own a couple of salons. So I have a training program where I help train stylists there, mostly my employees. I used to go out on the road and I charged $5.50 a day. Now I'm doing my YouTube videos for free. So this is kind of where you can get my best training. You can hire me to come in, and you could do like an event where you put together an event and hire me to come in and charge for tickets, something like that. It's $5.50 a day, and then flight and hotel and stuff. So that's if I came to you guys. If you guys came to me, I mean, I don't really know. I don't really do that a lot. I'll mostly just train kind of my own staff and my YouTube videos for you guys. But thus far, it's all been free. Yay. Good for you, I guess. And then the other thing is, I'm going to put this on low heat, and I'm going to work on the root first. And anytime I add volume to somebody's hair, female, male, straight, curly, anything, I'm going to focus on that root. So I'll show you what that means. I'm really pulling that hair, and I tell my clients to do the same. Pull up from that root. Wait, she was asking about styling a man's hair. Maybe she's asking, how much do I charge the men? To train, right? Okay, I had it right. Sometimes I use my comb and I pull up with that hair too. But you can see how his hair lays back really nice and easily. Not everybody's hair does this. I mean, some people's hair you really have to fight. And it's like you have to make sure that that person's willing to fight against their own hair every single morning. And then what I find is it looks good half the time. Because if they leave your chair and you make it look good, but then it looks bad for the 4 weeks that they don't see you, it's like, what's the point? You know, it just makes your work look bad except the one day they come to you. I think that's silliness. So another option is there's definitely some kind of grit to his hair right now. I can feel it. Another option is sometimes I'll do this. I don't want to do it too much because I still have to cut this. But sometimes what I'll do, and I do this on my own hair sometimes, especially in the bang area, is if it's not enough and it's just still too soft, what I'll do is I'll respray this in and then blow dry it on drier hair. Anytime the hair is dry, it's going to absorb more often. So I'm going to create a softness in through there. Or I mean, not a softness. I'm going to spray it in and I'm going to blow dry it really good into the hair. And I haven't even cut the top yet. Because he comes to me every 3 weeks to cut the sides, I don't have to cut the top too much because the top isn't going to grow out as fast as the bottom. I do address it every time. It's not like I just ignore it, but usually I'm working on the weight, not the length. I'm just going to take a brush and kind of get these ends down. Make sure they're dry more than anything. I don't really need to flatten them by any means. If he had more texture to his hair, I'd probably have to flatten it. And then the other thing that I always ask him too is I say, okay, as soon as I see him, I always say, okay, how's the length doing on top? That's kind of usually my main concern. And like I said, I don't usually work on point cutted lines, and I usually don't teach texture, mostly because I don't think people should just destroy hair, especially if you don't understand the basis of it. Once you build your foundation, you should definitely address the texture, creating texture within the hair. But until you understand the foundation, I don't start with this. All right, so you can see how it's kind of moving into itself. I'm going to still start in the back. And even though I'm working on dry hair and I'm just working on texture, I still try to create really clean, solid lines. And I'm going to cut into the hair. Like I said, it's only been 3 weeks. I don't want to cut a lot of hair off. You probably haven't seen me do texture before because I usually don't show people.
Special street today.
Yeah, you're so lucky. Okay, so and I'm still going to kind of start in the back and then work my way over to the sides. It's raining hair. So sometimes I have to put too much product in here and then I can't even get through it because I'm like, well, I created the grit that I wanted, but so much so that I can't even move through it with my shear. A lot of people ask me, do I dry cut or wet cut? As I say, and I will always say, there's no right or wrong in hair. It's knowing when. I don't want a lot of straight lines on this. So if I cut it on if I cut it on wet hair, sometimes it clumps together and I can't get that softness out of it on wet hair. I also can't see how it lays once it's dry. So that's why I'm cutting on dry hair right now. If I want to cut really, you have to remember when you cut on wet hair, it's the most elastic. So especially when you pull down on hair, has the most elasticity. So cutting on dry hair is going to be the truest to its natural state. You know, I kind of just, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll kind of put in clean lines on wet hair. And then if I want softer lines, I'll typically do it on dry hair. So there's no right or wrong. It's just kind of knowing, being able to answer why. Now, a lot of times people create kind of this shape on the haircut. Where it's a lot longer over here. A lot of times I don't mind the angle on this side, but a lot of times just cut that top corner off. So you can cut this top corner off a little bit squarer. The reason is because if you have this extra piece over on this left side, a lot of times it isn't doing anybody any favors. And you have to remember that if you're going for volume, the volume, if it gets too long, it's going to fall on itself. And so if somebody's going for volume, there's this bend in the hair that happens, and you can see exactly where it is. If I go too much over that bend, if I'm up here, what's going to happen is it's going to collapse on itself, and it's going to be harder and harder to get voluminous. So what happens is that what I see is people say, I want the top longer, I want the top longer, and then stylists just stop cutting the top. But if you're going for volume, you want it in about right here, because if you go longer than that, it's going to go against itself. It's kind of like product, it's like you want product to help with volume. And then you maybe you put like one of these, maybe you put one of these on the hair. It's one of the pucks, and it's a finishing product, and you keep putting on and you keep putting on. And yeah, sure, it works the first time for volume, but then in the end, it kind of works against itself because you put so much on that it starts weighing itself down. That's the same with hair itself. Sometimes you have so much hair up there, it starts weighing itself down. So I'm going to take that. So I'm kind of awkwardly cutting because this screen behind me, I'm a little stuck, but you can see how I'm going to actually take this left corner off a little bit because I want that to stand up. If this gets too long, it just gets really, again, I can't think of a better word than toupee. You've all seen it with some guy. He looks like he's stuck this mop of hair on top of his head, and there's no cohesion to it. Sorry, I hope you can see it. Can you see okay? Because I can't really turn around. Okay. You mean me, right?
Well, of course.
Okay. Just making sure. Okay. So again, I'm not worried about length too much. I'm more worried about the shape and the weight of it. So you guys know it's all about the shape. And this hair is very tickly. Oh my gosh, you look so dapper, kid. Okay, so today I'm going to be using the Fat Boys Sea Salt Pomade, and I can put it on my link below. Again, I really like this product. It's good for, again, it's matte. So I've constantly, a lot of the last few videos, I've done shiny on some level, and I like shiny on darker hair. On blonde hair, I typically like a little bit more matte because blonde has an easier time getting greasy. Again, you think about it material wise. So the way that I think about it is if you had a sheet of silk and you put 1 drop of water on that silk, it expands and goes further. If you have a little thing of wool and you put 1 drop, it will absorb it completely. So this hair is closer to silk where it's finer, it's softer, and that 1 drop will spread so much easier. So that's why this hair tends to get greasier. So I am much more likely to use a matter product. So this one is a sea salt pomade. I really like this one. It smells pretty good too. And 90% sure it doesn't have petroleum in it because I don't like products with petroleum in it. I teach them, I show them how much I used. Oops, I showed you how much I used. And then I put it all over my hands, and then I put it all over the hair within the hair. And again, if you do the prep work in the beginning with the blow dryer and a product in there to begin with, what happens is you need a lot less product in the end, and then it actually does its job, which is to promote texture and a little bit of volume and some, texture. So if you don't do that work in the beginning, what happens is it doesn't stand up on itself, and then people want to use more and more finishing product. But really, it's how you prep the hair that's going to do it. My example for that is when I used to do wedding hair, which is no longer. I will not do any more wedding hair. But back in my days when I was hungry and wouldn't be willing to do anything, I did this wedding hair. And when you go, you see it a lot where people will curl the hair and then try to hairspray the crap out of it. But really, if you add the texture in and then blow dry it in the hair and get that hair really, really prepped well, when you go to curl the hair, it will just stay. And then a lot of times you don't even need the hairspray. Actually, you learned that a lot at Fashion Week because we would prep the hair on dry hair a lot, and we would really get it in there, blow dry it in there, and then when we go into curl it, the hair became very malleable and style, and it was easy to style. So this is the end result. Again, he wears it well. Every time I see him when he comes in, even when he has hat hair, it's still better than most of my clients. So it's like, dang, Eric, you're good at this. So
It's that lazy chic.
lazy chic, I like it. So we can see that this is a style I really like. Some people do the hard part in here. You can, you don't have to. I just say it grows out in 2 days anyway. So either way. All right. Thank you, my dear.
No problem. Thank you.
See you in 3 weeks.
I'll see you.
All right. So I want to talk to you, like I said in the beginning of the video, about if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And what that means is, sorry, I'm so such tickly hair. And what that means to me is it's something that I heard from my mentor, and I think I really try to live by it because I think it's important. And I think we live in this world of like, well, if it's meant to be, it will just happen. It will just come to me. And that to me is a little bit more of a mindset. And mindset exists, right? I was talking to my friend this morning. We were kind of talking about complacency and how we feel like it should just come to us, or somebody else should discover our talents. Or, again, I think I told you guys before that when I first started cutting hair, I thought if I become the best hair cutter, then all of a sudden people are just going to find me and it's just going to happen. And I realized way too late in the game that that's not the case. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. So there's this level of that. Oops, sorry. There's this level that you have to put effort into something, and mindset is a part of it, but you have to really put effort into something to push past this point of comfortableness or complacency, as I was speaking to earlier. So I think of it like a puzzle, life itself. I think of life as a puzzle. And when I think about my puzzle, I think about I have to picture what that end looks like, what I want out of it, what is the end picture. And that to me is the mindset of building what that picture looks like. But then it's up to me to put that puzzle together and to figure out those missing links in life. And I think we have natural abilities. So a lot of times, some people are just really naturally good at being mothers. But there's still this level of studying, of understanding, of doing, of believing that has to happen to still become a better mother than your natural ability. A lot of times we see people, if you want to take soccer, for example, actually, okay, this is kind of not in my notes, but I was watching this video on greatness, and there's these studies that they do in football where they get all these people together and they do these measurements and see how high people can jump and see their arm width or their leg length or their proportions of their body, and they put on this chart of who should be the best. And often often it's never the people who measure up, if you will. It's the people with heart. It's the people with mindset. It's the people with grit. It's the people who are willing to push through when they are almost injured, but they push their body to the limits. And a lot of times it's people, there was some great soccer players that had one guy had 2 feet that went the same way. One guy was bow-legged, one guy was really, really short, one guy, there's all these like weird things. But what happens is they figure out their missing link to their puzzle and they push through because they understand that they have to get around that roadblock. And sometimes when you have that natural ability, you don't even have to try as hard. And so when you don't try as hard, then you never figure out that missing link because you have this natural ability, if that makes sense. So, and again, this is for marriage, motherhood, parenthood, work success, any kind of success. If you want to be better at it, you have to put that effort in. So I don't even feel like I've hit my stride yet. I feel like I have a lot of missing links. I think in today's age, there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression trying to kind of, it's like we want it to come to us, but we're not willing to put that effort in. And so I've become obsessed with finding these missing links, right? And finding like, what am I missing that this puzzle isn't really quite fitting together yet? And I'm on effort. And then sometimes it's frustrating because I'll even watch people who, are much, much younger than me and have far, less skill set, and they hit their stride far earlier. And so sometimes we get frustrated with that, right? But for me, it's like I have to stay focused on what my puzzle looks like, what my picture looks like. And the clearer I can make that, the easier it is going to be to make sure that that puzzle is finished. So I'm determined to make the life that I want, again, that end puzzle. And I suggest to you that the mindset of creating the clarity is half the battle, and going out and doing it is the other half. So once you have that clarity, I really suggest and encourage you to go make that happen, because if it's meant to be, it's up to me. So I leave you with these words. I hope they mean something to you. I hope they resonate with you, because they resonate to me, and I try to live my whole life by that. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. So with that, I say goodbye. And of course, tell me where you're from. I love to hear where you're from, the city and the country. My dots are filling in nicely. I want this whole chart filled with yellow because I want to know that this world is connected and that there is greatness out there. So I love you all, and I will catch you next time.